ナムコエンターテインメントのエースコンバットシリーズのブランドディレクターの河野です。
はい、プロデューサーの下本です。よろしくお願いします。
Hello. My name is Kono, and I'm from Bandai Namco Entertainment, and I'm the brand director of Ace Combat series, and I'm the producer of Ace Combat series, and my name is Shimomoto.
Based on the feedback from the last game, Ace Combat 7, what features did you implement into the new game, like some comfort features for the gameplay, or make it easier for people that didn't play the last game?
Ace Combat Series 7, the Ace Combat 8 did very well. We were anticipating some new gamers and who weren't familiar with the series. So we have added certain things. So the tutorials, we have really made sure that it is very clear, and we've taken time to construct that to make it easier for the newer gamers to be familiarize themselves with the game and the concept, and the training mode as well. We have really added the functions and make it much easier for people who aren't familiar with any warring aircrafts to really understand the functions. For Ace Combat 8, we were mindful not to change the play feel, but to elevate it for this one. For example, the thrill of fighting with the enemy, we tried to keep that as thrilling as before. But things like certain mechanics have been updated and renewed. For example, that calculation of the damage levels after the fights is being renewed different. There's a new mechanics involved before, prior from the previous series. And because this year is the 30th anniversary since the inception of the series, we have looked back to the previous installments and to really look at the very well done mechanics that we have developed in those series, to refer back to some of them, and we have incorporated that into this game.
I don't know if you can answer that question, but I'm still wondering, especially with, I reckon Ace Combat 7 did quite well, and there's few things cooler in action games than flying a plane and having an air combat. So why do you think it's so? There's few games like this out there. Is it hard to convince people to play these kind of games? And is this something that worries you? So I'm just wondering why, because it's really nice sitting in a plane. That's cool looking and doing action. So that's what I'm wondering.
Just to answer the first part of your question, so in this year, 2026, when we look at the industry as a whole, including independent games, I believe there are a fair number of flight shooter games, really, overall. However, it is very difficult to differentiate yourselves from the other flight shooter genres, really. If it's just simply to allowing the players to be on the aircraft, to freely enjoy the skies and just go on to the dogfight. And that is just, that simple structure itself is extremely difficult to really become the unique presence. However, the reason why we have managed to keep going the series for 30 years is because we think it's because we have this very clear core identity to let the players become the ace pilot through the challenges. So not just simply enjoying the fight, but really go through that journey. I think that really as a difference, really. That's what Kono-san thinks. It might be different for Shimomoto-san, but Shimomoto-san said, no, I agree, and I'm in agreement.
I have a two-pronged question. First part is, why did you go away from the way you told the story in Ace Combat 7 to the first-person immersion now? And second, Ace Combat feels very much like a Western game now, but you still chose that you have a main character who does not speak, which is a little bit disconcerting, maybe for Western players, because it's typical Japanese, I guess, but it's a little bit strange. And it would fit so nicely in the game, where there's many conversations you have with your teammates, and you answer, but there is no answer.
The answer to both parts of your question really is the same. As you mentioned, the story is being told from the person point of view, so they're full immersion as a protagonist, and that's really we place a great importance onto the gameplay as a whole. So the player to become the ace pilot and go through different challenges by themselves. To the first-person immersion perspectives, it's very important for the players to feel like they are actually within that world, on the other side of the screen, to experience being on the battlefield with your wingman colleagues, that you are there in that presence. The second half of the question. It is very important, personally, for Kono-san, for that experience of becoming an ace pilot is not dictated by somebody else. It's not really say, for example, if the gamer is playing and if that protagonist has a pre-recorded audio, the sound and speaking, a lot of the time the thought has been inserted into the gamer's head, and that is not ideal in Kono-san's point of view. For example, so not only the opinions, perspectives, but sometimes the memory, which you don't have, has been inserted. Like hypothetically, if there is a preset storyline of you have an older brother, and the older brother is actually the ace pilot of the other enemy formation. That's not something that feels comfortable to Kono-san. And he has this principle that he doesn't create a storyline or the memories that is unnecessary or not natural to the gamer themselves. Therefore, it's very, very important. It's just it's for the players to come up with their own stories, their own memories, by their own accord. That's why it's so. If it feels strange for the protagonist not to speak or have any sounds, feel free to speak as you play, and that is allowed completely.
Quickly add to the first-person perspective. Did you think about maybe enabling the player to walk around the ship on their own, freely, and visit the stations and talk to the people on their own pace? And why did you decide against it?
So we have thought about that idea in the beginning stages, definitely. We have explored, we have really, that was part of the brainstorming, really, what we've had. But when we prioritized the gameplay and the experience for the gamers, it didn't become the priority, higher enough priorities, because things like game's tempo, immersion, and the ace pilot experience, that journey, is really the core of this game. So the things like walking around the battleship becomes quite a redundant sequence. And at first the gamers may enjoy it, but the more they progress, they just wouldn't be able, they just wouldn't really utilize that function so much. And it just becomes, adds an unnecessary stress, perhaps, to the gamers. So when we were streamlining all the ideas and the process, it just became redundant as a function.
Most of the games in the series play in a fictional world. Can you give us some glimpse how do you come up with the names, the characters, the music for the world?
Comes to the names of the characters, for example, has been really, they mostly come from our animation director, Sunao Katabuchi, because he writes the script and he does come up with a lot of the names. There are some motifs that we have used as a reference sometimes, but that is really within our own. We can't really disclose that. That is confidential. But the sound designs as well. A lot of the times when within the script and also the character designs, and when we are deciding on the names, where they come from, what countries, what kind of culture these countries have, within those creation of the fictional world, and when we consider the geopolitical nature and the tensions between these countries, the music really evolves based on those cultures that we discover. So the songs that has been inserted in the latter half of the trailer is based on the this country and the enemy state Sotoa, and that song is actually has been created as the folk song of Sotoa. So, for example, that is really the logic of how we come up with the sound design.
A quick question about co-op and multiplayer. I'm gonna guess there is no local split screen co-op planned or something like that. And how does progression work in the multiplayer? Like, can both players keep their progression? Are they gonna play through whole missions, the whole story?
Yes, so the first part of the question is that there are no split screen functions. So when it comes to co-op, yes, and everything will be online mode. However, when it comes to multiplayer, we can't disclose any information today, but there will be some info released in the future. So please watch out this space.